Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to be talking about different types of solder, how to choose the right solder for the job, and everything that we need to know when we're choosing our solder, storing it, and understanding the differences between hard, medium, easy, working with gold and silver solder, and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. So I know that loads of you guys are very knowledgeable around jewellery making and soldering, so I would love you to come and share with me in the comments your thoughts, ideas, experiences around choosing solder for different jobs or any challenges that you've had, so that we can share as a community. So the actual what's happening when we're soldering is we're joining two metals together and we're using solder which has a lower melting temperature. It's another metal, it has a lower melting temperature than the primary metal that we're joining together. And as we heat up that ring or that metal, whatever piece we're working on, the particles inside it expand and give a little bit of space in between. And as the solder melts, it goes into that space. So it creates a really strong kind of connection that is hopefully for a lifetime. So there are three different main types of solder. There's hard, medium, and easy. And they all have, in silver solder, for example, they all have silver content and a little bit of copper and zinc and sometimes tin. So the easy solder is the one that has the lowest melting temperature. Medium is in the middle and hard has the highest melting temperature. And the easy solder has the least amount of silver content, so it has other alloys at a higher level. And the hard solder has the most amount of silver content. So it's the closest to silver that we get. And as we go down, it gets slightly further away. So if you're doing a piece where there's a seam that is going to be very visible, we always want to try and start with hard. We want to work with hard first because it is the closest match to silver. It won't tarnish as quickly, and it's just the closest we can get to that metal as possible. So why do we use medium and easy? Well, because if you're doing a piece with lots of solder joins, you might, as you grow as a jeweler, you might end up doing pieces with 5, 10, 15, even 20 solder joins if you're doing boxes and construction. And we need to work our way down through the grades so that we're not, because every time we heat up that piece again, we have the potential to lose that original solder join. There's all sorts of tips and tricks that you can do to make sure that your original solder joins don't kind of melt again and move the whole piece. But one way to do it is to work your way through the grades. So that's the first thing to work out is, do you need to use hard, medium, or easy? And if you're doing a more complex piece, we normally have a plan. So we'll sit down and map out a plan. These are all the different solder joins, and this is what I'm going to need to use for each one. And make sure you have them to hand before you start the job. So then solder comes in different forms. You can get sheet solder, which is like, it looks like a sheet metal, but much thinner. And we cut that up with tin snips to make little pallions, which are essentially little tiny squares, like 1mm by 1mm of solder that we can put on the piece. We also can use paste solder. Paste solder is quite useful for certain techniques, like some people use it for granulation or filigree work, or working with metal clay because it's very porous. So it's also worth experimenting with the different types of silver to see which one you like working with best. And they're good for different jobs. So sheet silver is great for if you're working with sheet metal. You can also get wire silver, which is very similar to sheet, but it just comes in that wire form. And that's quite good if you're just starting working with gold and you don't want to buy a whole sheet of gold silver, but you just want a little bit of wire. Note though, it does go very quickly. I noticed when I bought my first wire solder gold, I got the sheet straight away afterwards because it just disappeared. But some people really love working with wire. It's quite easy to place. And you can also flatten it with a hammer to get more of a sheet on it anyway. So it's a little bit more versatile in that way. For soldering really tiny findings like little jump rings or tiny little earring posts, you might want to use easy solder if you find that you're melting it very regularly, because they're such, sometimes they're such tiny pieces, then don't be afraid to use easy solder. We always want to start with hard. Hard is like the holy grail. If we could do everything in hard, we probably would. but it is also fine to work your way down through the grades, and it's necessary for lots of pieces to work your way from medium and then to easy. So do experiment with different solder types and what's going to work for the type of jewellery that you create.
So I thought I'd show you my solder drawer. So it's important to have all of your solder categorized so that you don't get it all mixed up. And you can see in here I've got my silver hard, medium and easy. I've also got quite a bit of gold solder. It can be an investment when you first start working with gold, but I've got some yellow gold. I always put the carat on there, 18 carat, and whether it's hard, medium or easy. So I've got yellow gold and easy. Then I've got some white gold, some red gold. So whatever you're working with, you want to make sure you have the right solder for the job. And this is all sheet. So I'll show you an example. So hard silver, probably most of you have worked with before. If you've done any soldering, this is probably what you've used. And it comes like that, and we just snip off the ends into little tiny pieces. So those two are similar to this one, but they are thinner, and confusingly, the medium one is the thinnest and easy is in between, just to make it a little bit more confusing. Then let's have a look at some gold solder. So I tend to buy my gold solder nowadays in sheet, but you can get small bits of sheet, and luckily it also says on there what it is. So hard white gold, HWG, which is helpful, but it's still really important to have them categorized for yourself. And I'll just show you one more little bit of bling, yellow gold. And you can see how I've started with a big sheet and just cutting away at it. And in there you can see the tiny little pallions that I can use to work with. So that is my solder drawer.
So I hope you found that whistle-stop tour of different types of solder and what we use them for helpful. As I said, I would love to hear from you, your tips, your ideas. Come and share them below, or do a video and share a tip with us, or do share some images and tag us at Jewellers Academy. We would love to share what you guys have to offer in the community, whether you're soldering silverwork or metal clay or gold or granulation, filigree, anything. We all have different skills that would be wonderful to bring together. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on another video very soon. Bye for now.